Berachot, second chapter, fifth Mishnah, פרק ב' משנה ה'. לאחר שלמדנו במשנה הקודמת, after we've learned in the previous Mishnah, שהאומנים עוסקים במלאכתם, that the artisans are busy with the work, וקוראים שמה, and they read שמה, באה משנתנו להשמיע, this Mishnah comes to teach us, שהעוסק במצווה, that as long as one is performing a mitzvah, או הטרוד בטרדה של מצווה, or as long as somebody is worried about the worrying of performing a particular commandment, שהיה, the Rambam explains it, שהיה ליבו טרוד, that his heart was troubled, ונחפז לדבר מצווה, and he was stressed about the mitzvah that he had to do. פטור מקריאת שמע. In that circumstances, he's not obligated in reading of the Shema. שנאמר, because it says, ודיברת בם, you should speak in them, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך, when you sit in your house and when you go on your way. ודרשו חכמים, and the sages learned, בשבתך בביתך, when you sit in your house, כשאתה יושב ועוסק בענייני ביתך, when you are sitting and are busying with the matters of your house, חייב אתה לקרוא, then you are obligated to read. אבל אם אתה עוסק במצווה, but if you're performing another commandment, אתה פטור מקריאת שמע. You're not obligated in reading of the Shema. וכן, and similarly, ובלכתך בדרך, when you go on your way, בהליכה שלך בענייניך אתה חייב לקרוא שמע. When you go on your way, you are obligated to say the Shema. אבל בהליכה של מצווה אתה פטור. So it's only when you go for your purpose, you're obligated to say the Shema. But if you're going for the purpose of God, which means you are doing commandment, then you're not obligated. כלומר, which means גם כשאינך טרוד בעסקיך השונים, also when you are busy with your particular businesses, חייב אתה להיפנות מהם ולקרוא שמע. You have to take away time from your personal business and read the Shema. אבל כשאתה טרוד בטרדה של מצווה, but when you are busy doing a commandment, אתה פטור מקריאת שמע. You are not obligated in reciting the Shema. והוא הדין במצוות אחרות. And this is also the rules for other commandments. שהעוסק במצווה פטור מן המצווה. That is, you are busy in doing one set of commandment, you're not obligated in performing another set of commandment. Okay. Chatan, a groom, שנשא בתולה, that got married to a virgin, פטור מקריאת שמע בלילה הראשון. He's not obligated in reciting the Shema on the first night של הנישואים, of the marriage. Until when? עד מוצאי שבת. Until Shabbos goes out, until the end of Shabbat. שכן, what it has to do with Shabbat? שכן נוהגים היו לישא בתולה ביום הרביעי, because the custom was that if you're marrying a virgin, you would get married on a Wednesday. ובאה המשנה ללמדנו, and this Mishnah comes to teach us, שחתן פטור מקריאת שמע עד מוצאי שבת, that the groom is not obligated to say the Shema until the end of Shabbat. ועד בכלל, until to that point, until the Shabbat is no longer here. שהם 4 לילות. In other words, we give him 4 nights. אם לא עשה מעשה, when is that true? If he didn't consummate the marriage, if there was no consummation of the marriage. אם עד מוצאי שבת לא בעל עדיין, if until Shabbat left, he did not consummate the marriage. יש מדייקים, there are those who says, שאינו פטור אלא בלילות, that he doesn't have to say Shema, it's talking about the Shema of the night. דהיינו מקריאת שמע שבערבית, which means the Shema that is in the evening. אבל בקריאת שמע ששחרית הוא חייב, but when it comes to the morning Shema, obviously he is obligated. ואפילו ביום הראשון, even in the first day, לאחר החופה, after the חופה, he is obligated. ויש סוברים, there's a second opinion that says, שפטור בכלל מקריאת שמע, that he is not obligated at all, both day and night, ואפילו בשחרית, even in the morning, עד מוצאי שבת. This is until Shabbat is over. אבל במוצאי שבת ואילך, but once Shabbat is over, אף על פי שעדיין לא מעשה, even though he didn't consummate the marriage yet, הוא חייב בקריאת שמע. He is still obligated in reciting, he will be obligated reciting the Shema. Why? שכבר נתקררה דעתו וליבו גס בה. Because he's already not so concerned and he's more relaxed when it comes to that particular mitzvah. ושוב אינו טרוד. We cannot say that it weighs heavily on his mind from that point onwards. The reason why the people used to get married on a Wednesday is because the courts were opened on a Thursday. And once the court was open, if there was a question about maybe she wasn't a virgin or something like that, he has a time to go to courts and complain about it right after the night. מעשה ברבן גמליאל שקרה בלילה הראשון שנסע. There was a case where Rabban Gamliel got married. And even though he got married, he said to the people over there, let's daven Ma'ariv. And during Ma'ariv, he said the Shema over there. קרא שמע בלילה הראשון של חתונתו. He recited the Shema on the first night of his wedding. אמרו לו תלמידיו, his students told him, לרבן גמליאל, they told Rabban Gamliel, לא לימדתנו רבנו, it says, Rabbi, didn't you teach us? שחתן פטור מקריאת שמע בלילה הראשון? That a groom is not obligated to recite the Shema on the first night? למה אינך נוהג כמו שלמדתנו? Why you don't behave? You say one thing and you behave in a different manner. Tell us. Do exactly what you tell us. Do as you preach, like they say. אמר להם, so Rabban Gamliel told to them, איני שומע לכם לבטל ממני מלכות שמיים אפילו שעה אחת. It says, I am not going to listen to you to nullify for me to accept the yoke of heaven even for one moment. חומרה אני נוהג בעצמי. In other words, it says, this is a stringency that I took upon myself, שלא לבטל ממני עול מלכות שמיים אפילו זמן מועט. Not to accept, to nullify the yoke of heaven from me even for 1 second. בעניין תשובתו של רבן גמליאל, when it comes to the answer of רבן גמליאל, איני שומע לכם לבטל ממני, I am not listening to you to nullify for me, שמעתי הסבר בשם הרב חיים מוולוזין. There's an explanation from the Rabbi Chaim from Volozhin. And he explains as follows. כרגיל, it's in a usual manner, a regular person, נתון האדם בעול עסקיו היום-יומיים. A person has the worry of his business, of his daily life. ומוחו שקוע תמיד בענייני חולין. And his mind is always thinking about mundane matters. Where is he going to get his food? Where is he going to get his sustenance? What's going to be with his children? And so on and so forth. ולכן כשהוא קורא השמע, and therefore when a person recites the Shema, או עומד בתפילה, or when a person is standing 18, צריך הוא להתאמץ מאוד כדי להשתחרר ממחשבות החולין. He needs to strain himself in order to redeem himself from all those mundane thoughts. ולכוון ליבו לשמיים. And only then he is able to intune his heart with the heaven. מכאן, from here we learned, שאם אנו אומרים שהוא פטור מקריאת שמע, that if we're going to say that he's not obligated in reciting the Shema, אין זה משמע שמבטלים ממנו דבר. We're not actually nullifying from him anything. אלא שאין מחייבים אותו לקיים דבר. It's just that we're telling him, don't stay the way you are. Don't take away from who you are right now. And continue to think about your mundane things. We're not going to make you push yourself away, push your ego away to do something else. כלומר, which means, שבשעת תרדה של מצווה, over here we're telling him, you're doing a mitzvah anyway, so you might as well continue to do the mitzvah. אין מחייבים אותו לקיים מצוות קריאת שמע. We're not going to obligate the person to perform the mitzvah of Shema. which mitzvah is he busy doing? Is busy doing the mitzvah of pruvu, be fruitful and multiply, consummating his marriage. So as long as he's doing a mitzvah, that's fine. Shehi kabbalat ol malchut shamayim. Reciting the Shema is the mitzvah of receiving upon oneself the yoke of heaven. Aval, this is an irregular person, that he has to take away his mind from regular stuff, from mundane stuff. And over here, on his mind is not a mundane stuff. On his mind is a particular mitzvah of be fruitful and multiply. That's the mitzvah. So we don't tell him to switch over from one mitzvah to another mitzvah. Aval kegon Rabban Gamliel, when we're talking about a person like Rabban Gamliel, shu natun kulo be'ol avodat Hashem, his entire life he's not worried about mundane things at all. His entire life is service of God. V'chol ma'ayanav b'dvarim shebekdusha, he's always worried about holy things. Lo kashe lo lishtachrer b'machshavot hakodesh. It's not hard for him to remove himself from thinking from one mitzvah to another mitzvah. Afilu b'makom she'asor la'arher b'dvarim shebekdusha. Even in places where it's hard for him to think about things of holiness. For example, when one is in the bathroom. Umikan shelegabav, and from here we learn that for a person like Rabban Gamliel, patur mikshmiyat kra, when we tell him you're not obligated to accept on yourself the yoke of heaven, mashma levatel mano ol malchut shamayim. He doesn't have to do something to accept upon himself the yoke of heaven. The yoke of heaven is upon him at all time, and he has to do something to take it away. So you're telling him, don't think about God. He says, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm naturally, not like everybody else in the world that naturally thinks about mundane things. I am naturally thinking about godliness. And you're telling me, go against God, don't think about God? I'm not willing to do that. A regular person, you're not telling him, don't think about God. He's not thinking about God anyway. Shu natun bo tamid. He is always thinking about God. Now we can understand the explanation. I am not going to listen to you to nullify for me the yoke of heaven even for one moment, because for me it's an act, for you it's not.